I've wanted it. You've wanted it. I'm sure they've wanted it. But we've been waiting almost, what, this is 20 episodes now? But we got a Worf
A
episode.
Worf episode. Woo!
Come on, let's go!
The crew rescues Klingon fugitives from a war-torn ship.
The captain wants those two taken into custody.
But these warriors have deadly motives.
Join us.
Now, a sinister plot puts Worf's loyalties to the test.
He has a phaser aimed directly at the dilithium crystal chamber.
Brother, we have a chance!
On Star Trek, The Next Generation.
Someone cooked here.
If you didn't see our reaction and you want to check it out, that'll be pinned in the comments. But we just watched Heart of Glory for the first time.
He's been sitting in the background, getting beat up, hanging out in a blue suit, going to play some tennis game, like that one episode, whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
It's like, I've wanted to know more about him. Like, is he the only Klingon? Are there multiple Klingons in Starfleet? And like, we finally get to know a little bit more about him. How long he's like been away from Klingon society, from what we can tell based on like the language that Klingons used. And it's like, this answered so many questions, but raised so many more. And just seeing Michael Dorn get to act.
Yeah, this episode brought so much to the table. Starting with Worf, yeah, we got not only like a little piece of his backstory, we got pretty much the whole thing.
I was buried under the rubble and left for dead. A human Starfleet officer found me.
Grows up with them, has a foster brother, so that might come into play at some point, I'm guessing. They set that up.
When my foster brother and I were of age, we entered Starfleet Academy. He hated it and returned to Galt.
Joined Starfleet, only Klingon, apparently the exception. And that actually surprised me because seeing him on there so nonchalantly, like no one thus far has made it like a huge deal that he's a Klingon. There's been a few references to it, but it's nothing like that crazy. So for him to be the only one that at least he knows of was a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, but also it brings up more questions. As we thought, like Data, like, oh, I wonder if there's more androids. Nope, he's the only one. Now I'm thinking about Troy. Is she the only Betazoid in Starfleet? Are there other ones? You know what I mean? It's
Dude,
like,
if that's true, then the Enterprise, dude, they got the stacked crew. Or would it be considered like the leftovers? Like there wasn't enough humans, they got all the other species. I don't know which way it goes. So not only do we get to get all that backstory, but a huge reason we do is because for the first time in the show, we meet other Klingons. And we don't meet them until like, what do you think, maybe like 20 minutes into the episode?
yes, straight out of Star Trek 3 Klingons. Like such like a huge contrast to Worf. Like these guys are like rebel Klingons.
You destroyed a Klingon vessel? I did not want to battle our brothers. I had no choice.
Great inclusion, great performances by those actors, and we get a little bit more just general Klingon backstory. And I love the little note, they say it twice in the episode after one of them dies when they're like, their body is just an empty vessel, just leave it. It's such a flip from most cultures where, you know, someone dies and it's like their body's sacred. Obviously humans, we bury, cremate, those types of things. But no, Klingons are just like, it's not about the physical body, it's just the spirit and that's no longer there. So that's just a great, you know, something you don't really see or hear that often when it comes to that.
Yeah, and my favorite part about like the death ceremony is like, you think they're yelling for like them, like, oh, you know, like out of respect. It's like, no, we're warning the dead that a Klingon warrior is coming. Like, it's fucking badass.
Yeah, it's badass.
That's badass.
Getting to see Worf play off these Klingons, it was such an excellent way. I hadn't even thought about it, but I was like, oh, once we get to a Worf episode, that'll be cool because he's a Klingon. You know, how does he interact with humans off the Enterprise and stuff? But no, it's like we get to see him interact with Klingons, and it was the perfect way to build up his character because you instantly see the contrast, even though these are like rebel Klingons, but you see the contrast of what Klingons as we know them, and now Worf,
Yeah.
the more assimilated type of Klingon into human culture.
Yeah, and we find out like now Klingons and Starfleet have like a working like agreement, like relationship. Like, okay, we're not warring with each other. So that was very cool to see because I've always wondered like, okay, why is Worf here? And we find out it's like, okay, but aren't still Klingons and humans? Like, oh no, there's been a working relationship for a while now. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's very neat. But just Worf's like the only one that was kind of raised into Starfleet.
For all of that to just be portrayed in this one episode, that's the most impressive part to me, how well they pulled that off while still being able to weave in a very interesting story, in my opinion, with these rebel Klingons kind of going against, even killing a ship of Klingons themselves. and, facing execution, all of those things. And yeah, let's talk about the Lieutenant Klingon that comes to take him. Even he was kind of a complex character for his small screen time and his conversations with Picard and Worf.
The Klingons have this this lineage and this way of doing things, but they're also growing as a species.
I too wish they could fly free, but I have no choice.
It's like they're slowly growing, like they're aware of like their Klingon, what do they say? Their heart, what they need to do. This is what Klingons do, but like we have new rules.
Yeah,
So,
diplomacy, political.
yeah, that's very cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long will that last? Will that be all of TNG, even beyond TNG? That'll be interesting to see. But everything with the Klingons and Worf, that whole dynamic, it all bubbles down, I think, to that one of the last scenes right before he kills Konus.
I don't care what you look like. You are no Klingon.
Perhaps not.
Oh, it's just great writing. It's just so good.
Yeah, and even right before that, it's like, Warrior's not what fighting on the outside. It's about fighting what's in here. It's like, let's go, Worf.
And Worf was already having great one-liners in previous episodes leading up to this. He was like that one-liner machine, but in this one, fully the whole episode, he's just these great lines throughout the whole thing. Michael Dorn, excellent.
It's like, why did they put him on the shelf this entire first season until now? It's like, come on, let the guy do it. And I think Picard's I think he has full faith in Worf the entire time. I mean, we know that sometimes the Enterprise is a little bit too trusting sometimes, but I feel like Picard did have full faith in Worf the entire time. I mean, there was that one scene where it's like, oh, they're near the battle bridge.
You don't think Worf would allow them access to the battle bridge? I think, number one, we cannot assume anything.
Maybe a little bit of doubt there, but I just love how Picard's Worf's our guy.
Yeah, and I didn't even see it as doubt. I just saw it as I don't think I wouldn't think Worf would do this, but this is the situation. The information we have is they're at the battle bridge. We got to go send a security team there. Mm-hmm. Hey, I know Worf wouldn't do this, but just be aware of who you're going to face. Talking up Worf, even though unfortunately we haven't gotten really to see it on screen much. Talking him up to Tasha. Let's talk about that scene a little bit, where Tasha brings the security geeks up to the Klingons, and of course the pro wrestling fan in me wanted to see this, huge brawl break out.
This Daredevil hallway fight or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I actually, now that I'm a few minutes removed from watching it, I actually respect that it brings it face to face, and there's this tension, and there's, literally Worf torn in the middle, looking back and forth on both sides, kind of representing the episode.
Yes.
But then the tension of the little girl coming in, breaking that tension when the Klingon hands her to Worf, and them all realizing okay, we're good. And it just kind of that tension break without there needing to be that instant combat. I actually respect that as a storytelling, the way it played out.
Yeah, it was a nice way to resolve the issue. Honorable warriors in their own, their definition of honor might be a little different in some areas, but there's still good honor there. You know what I mean? We're going to go down fighting, but we're not savages.
Yeah. Obviously, if, these rebels aside, if they were able to broker a peace deal, clearly they're pretty up with the times. It's just that these rebels did not agree with that. And, we deal with that in the real world every day. Radical groups who, maybe their country is in some type of peace deal, but you have radical groups who don't agree with that for, whatever reason. And this episode doesn't go that deep into that aspect of it. But,
yeah.
I think, which is good because it wouldn't have had the time to dive into that fully. So, yeah, I have a lot of other stuff besides Worf to talk about, but anything to wrap it up?
I was about to say, Michael Dorn is the man. I just wish, we saw this earlier. I mean, although it was a nice treat to make us wait and then give us this gem, because I think it makes it that much sweeter. Picard's last line to Worf.
Now, Mr. Worf, the bridge wouldn't be the same without you.
Just excellent. Summed up that last scene, because I was worried, like you said, about how he didn't have a doubt in him, and then Worf tells the one guy, oh, that'd be an honor, thank you. And then he's like, no, I was just being polite. Picard's they're oh, I don't know. And even as the audience, we were also or at least I was I don't know. I kind of believe Worf that he might consider that when he's done with Starfleet. But then that little ending line, I was yeah, that's the perfect way to wrap it up. Because even if it's the case that maybe one day Worf would consider joining them, for now it doesn't matter. For now, he's loyal to the Enterprise and Picard's loyal to him. And that's the great thing about this show, is that in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking about what's Worf going to do after Starfleet? He's a completely fictional character. You know what I mean? But it's like, I'm left here wondering because I'm so invested already. And this was the best, in my opinion, setup of a side character moving forward. Hopefully he's not just sidelined the rest of the season, but if he doesn't do that much, at least we got this really good episode with him.
The first 10-15 minutes of this episode is amazing on its own as well.
Almost a little bit worried that it's like, is this as in-depth with Geordi as we get this season? Does he not get like his full episode? Because it seems almost like they were like, let's shove a little Geordi character development into the beginning of this Worf episode, which, you know, is fine because it worked and it didn't feel like a mess. Like it actually, you know, was really good. I hope we get to see something more of Geordi, though, more focused before the end of the season would be one of my kind of like checklist things I'd like to see. But yeah, let's talk about it. So the big kind of moment from that is getting to see finally inside of Geordi's visor.
Yes, that. No, back. Yes, that, right there.
That's Commander Riker.
Even going as far as like Picard commenting and asking questions that the audience is thinking, kind of Picard being that stand-in for us to be like, why does it look like that? What is that? You know, and I love the moment where he's like, what's that aura around Data? And Geordi's like, oh, wait, you don't see that when you look at him? It's like, that's so excellent because, of course, Geordi only has his perspective. Picard only has his, which is, ours. So they just did that so well.
How can you make head or tail of that?
Well, how in a noisy room can you select one specific voice or sound?
Yeah,
there you go.
Excellent metaphor. Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah, that was all great. And I was also wondering that whole time, like, what are we getting to? Because they mentioned Romulans, they mentioned Ferengi, even though we didn't want it to be Ferengi.
Yes, like the teases were like so slow, where it's like, I remember, like, we first perked up, they said neutral zone, and we're like,
They have recorded a disturbance in the neutral zone.
Romulans always have to do with the neutral zone. Not expecting it at all when they finally get to the reveal. Klingons.
What is it? What do you see?
Klingons.
Klingons.
They did it well because Klingons was the last thing I expected to be on that ship. So
Same.
throwing out the bait, out there for other species, especially Romulans, really works. As much as I'm pissed that they kind of clickbaited us into thinking it was Romulans, it worked because it was very effective. Really great episode.
Yeah, good stuff, finally. With Worf. I mean, not good episode, finally. There's been plenty of those. I mean, good Worf episode.
Yeah.
Which is what I've wanted, for a bit now.
So let's see if our patrons agree with us. We're going to go over to our patron takes where our patrons over on Patreon let us know what they think of the episode, as well as predict how we're going to feel about it, ask us questions, or give us fun facts about the episode. We read them for the first time right now after we've watched and discussed the episode, so we have no idea if they're going to agree with us or not. And we only read a few of them here for the video, but there's a whole discussion over there on Patreon, so go ahead and sign up for your free trial, check that out, and maybe be featured in the patron takes in the next video.
Well, I got to start with this one.
Okay.
I got to start with Troy Massey. Klingon lore. The lore. Yeah, there we go.
This one's from Gary. Well, you finally got your Worf episode. Were we bothering you guys that much? Was it everything you hoped for? I loved this episode. It was a great introduction to Worf and Klingon lore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, finally.
It was better than I could have hoped for, honestly. It truly did. For a Worf episode, blew away my expectations.
Yeah, the way they were treating him, I thought, like, okay, we might not get anything in this first season. Maybe like in the later ones, but like, I'm glad they gave it to us now. All right, this one's from the game show reviewer. Oh man, Alex and Josh are legit going to love this one. It's got everything from lore, the backstory, not the evil Data twin, a decent story, good action. This is a highlight of season 1. Fun fact, it's probably obvious, but the Klingon ship on the view screen is reused footage from the motion picture.
Well, appreciate you thinking that would be obvious to us. Nothing's ever obvious to us. I didn't know that. Did you?
No.
No.
We thought it was a Romulan ship because we're stupid.
No, I swear to God, that was the Romulan design, and then like in the movies they like switched it. I swear to God. Someone will confirm.
Someone will.
But yeah, they were definitely right that we legit loved this one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
This one's from Talon Starburst. Wow. I've been waiting for a Worf episode, and it did not disappoint. Not only did we get to learn more about this intriguing character, but also more about the Klingons in general. Loved the death ritual. That was great. And a side note, was also cool to know a little more about Geordi earlier in the episode and how he literally sees. This may be my favorite episode so far, and I believe that Talon Starburst is actually watching TNG for the first time as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with us. So
really?
yeah,
Wow.
I believe they're watching the episode and then watching it, seeing our reaction to it. So, that's something that it's awesome to see people do that as well.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, that's
But I
awesome.
agree with everything said here, for sure.
Okay, this one's from CM Waters. 2 things I'll say. 1, still love the scene where the non-Worf Klingons use pieces of their armor to help them escape. I love that. 2, don't get used to the Klingon homeworld being called Kling. Someone probably realized how dumb that sounded.
Yeah, I caught on to that too. I'm like, is there a planet called
I was
Kling?
like, wait, is that where they're from?
This one, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it, so I'm not going to try, but this is who it's from. You can let us know how to pronounce it. Here's a question for you. How well do you project that these Klingons represent the Klingon culture and mindset as a whole?
That's a good question. We kind of touched a little bit on it with like, okay, we see how a one Klingon guy on the one ship reacts. Like, I understand, I get it, I do. But we have these other things going on. I'm curious on this supposed planet Kling. Like, do they all think this way? There's got to be some Klingon backlash. There's got to be like some, not civil war, but political dispute. And these 3 Klingons that escaped are probably like the ones that are like, that were really like, screw this. I don't bet there's even more. It makes me want to see more. It's like, it's making me ask questions. It's like, what happens next on Kling or wherever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think in terms of representing the Klingon as a whole, I'll be very interested if the Klingons of TNG are much more like the captain commander guy that we saw on the view screen than these rebels. The rebels more so reminded me a little bit of like TOS Klingons and what they represented. As the audience of someone who watched TOS, it was a little bit more welcome to see that version of Klingon interact with Worf. But the whole idea of them having a peace treaty and being more diplomatic has been completely unexplored. So I would be very much down to see the more diplomatic side of that and some tensions, with that. And then also the idea of like these offshoot rebels who don't agree. That could be something they play more with too. So again, no idea how much Klingons are in TNG. I heard that Roddenberry tried to like ban them when they were first making the show, like no Klingons in TNG or something. Obviously that didn't hold up very long, if true.
And then they finally let him in, and it's a banger. Oh,
Yeah.
Go figure.
Shocker.
Go figure.
But hey, not everyone always agrees. This one's from Philip. Awful episode. Too much stupid Klingon stuff.
Okay.
Thank you, Philip. Great points.
Thanks for being a patron.